Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Tuesday, July 31st. I've been joined by the Honorable Councilman Jose Rizar, and I'm anticipating Councilman Englander. And there he is. Boy, boom, right on cue. Guy's like a superhero entrance there. He flew in. I want to thank you all for coming to City Hall. I know it's not the easiest place to get to, so thank you for your patience. Just some points that I'd like to make before we start is that you can tell the acoustics are not the best, so hearing a person speak is rather difficult. So if you have conversations, please take them outside out of courtesy to those who are trying to understand the speaker. When you come to the microphone, try to speak into it. Even if you're a little bit off, we lose your voice. So we appreciate that cooperation. When you come to the microphone, give us your name and address. Some of you have written eloquent letters about your position. You have 2 minutes. If you want to get to the main point of the letter, I highly recommend it before you run out of time. So that being said, we've been joined by Councilmember Englander, and we do have a few items to run through the agenda. Item 8 has been continued in plum to August 21, and hopefully on council September 14th. So those of you that are here for item number 8, that has been continued to August 21. We do have 2 special guests. I'd like to get to them. But before we do that, I'd like to ask the director of our planning department, Mr. LeGrand, if you have your report for us. We appreciate that. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Mike LeGrand for the record. Good to see all of you. A few updates from the department. We just released a few weeks ago the request for proposals for the new zoning code. So the item you approved a few months ago in the City Council, we're now working diligently to go through to get the right team in place to move that forward and get that work program started. We appreciate your support of that. In addition, we executed a contract with Metro to start our 10 TOD plans that are paid for through Measure R and through the Metro Board. So we appreciate their support of this and the City Council support in our budget to do TOD planning around the stations to make sure we have the right zoning tools and protections for those neighborhoods who will be receiving the infrastructure improvements through Measure R. In addition to our community plans, we've been meeting with the staff and diligently pushing those forward, and we're currently on track to release all 6 of our community plans this year. So we'll have 6 community plans out for public review through this year, so we're happy to see those come forward and look forward to working with the council to continue to develop new policies and programs to meet the needs of the city and your districts.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, and hope you had a good rest from vacation.
Yes.
Okay, good. Juice of the batteries. So that being said, I'd like to invite our special guests. We have with us Mr. Dana Perlman, who is being appointed to City Planning Commission. And good day, sir. It was good chatting with you just before this meeting. And I just have one question. When you put your flag outside your house, do you have USC and UCLA, or just UCLA, or you don't want to say? But just kidding.
It depends on who's winning. No.
Who's winning? What sport, huh?
I'm a Bruin.
All right. Oh, good day, sir. Well, good to have you.
Good to meet
you. This is for the citywide board for the Planning Commission. Can you just give us a little bit about your background and the role you see yourself playing in the citywide board?
Sure. Boy, you're right. The acoustics they're much better there. Good afternoon. For the past 25 years, I've been in private practice as an attorney, doing mostly corporate and real estate law and litigation. I'm a native Angelino, Bruin undergrad, Trojan graduate. In addition to my practice, though, what I have most pride in is my community service work. Anywhere from serving on the County Youth Commission to back in my UCLA days, as we discussed, starting projects at the Community Development Commission at UCLA, serving on the board of the Human Rights Campaign, working on various electoral races, And for the last year, I was honored to serve on the Transportation Commission as an appointee of Mayor Villaraigosa.
Well, one, I want to thank you for considering this position. And any questions from my colleagues for Mr. Perlman?
So, football games, do you root for the Trojans or the Bruins?
I root for the Bruins.
All right, thank you. You got my vote.
Thank you.
Okay, that's two, okay.
And now, all right. Actually, I wanted to compliment you on your civic and community participation. It's been. You want to hear me? Actually, that's not my wife says. She prefers the microphone off. I wanted to compliment you on all of your civic and community participation and activism. You've done quite a bit outside of a law practice as well, and it's a very impressive. My question was that I didn't see any real land use experience, so I only asked. We didn't get the opportunity to sit down and talk, but out of respect, though, that if you could just cover, some of your experience in not necessarily real estate law, but local land use issues, and your background on that as well.
Sure. I will fully admit I have not been actively engaged in land use in my practice. I did do a thesis at USC, but that was many, many years ago on land use, and took a course there. I have not been engaged in that. I think what I would bring to the commission is my analytical skills, my ability to listen to people, to hear the various sides, to help understand and analyze the issues and drill down and hopefully assist in making sure people are heard and the right recommendations are brought to the commission.
Right. I do appreciate your honesty on that. When and please just take this respectfully, but one of the things that I ran on when I ran for office and talking to a lot of folks is the idea, and this isn't the forum now, but on commission reform and looking at having actual expert, either expertise or at least even specific seats dealing with subject matters and experts in subject matters on each commission. And that's one of the things that I've been doing as I meet with individuals on what is their expertise, what do they bring to the table, or what's been their personal experience in dealing with whatever commission it is they're getting on. And that's what I'm really looking for in the long term, particularly as it deals with where we're at right now in trying to get projects moving, because things are so complicated. And that's where I hear the frustration from the public and businesses, is that they're dealing with a lot of folks that are kind-hearted. Their spirit is in the right place, and they want to, and they're willing to put the time in. And I can't thank you enough for the time that you have put in, continue to put in, and on all the great folks that are doing that for free as volunteers. We only had one paid commission, as I'm sure you know, and so all the others spend countless hours, not just at the commission meetings, but doing their homework and their research, and it takes a lot of effort. But that's what I'm looking for. So I hope you take that with in only not a personal matter, but only with respect from where my position has been and will continue to be, and that's just where I'm at.
Yeah.
But thank you.
And I appreciate that too. But I do want to just share some of the substance of our conversation. And one of the questions I asked Mr. Perlman was, when I first started in the council, my first year, 2 years, I actually was able to conduct plum meetings in the neighborhoods. And I would go into different sectors of the city and ask the question, where do you see housing in your area? And at that time, the discussion of affordable housing was it was at one of its highest pitch. And the issue of how we develop policy to identify opportunities for housing. From my point of view, I was seeking input from the different stakeholders and sectors of each community to give me that advice and give me the perspective directly. And there was one area in particular I won't name where I was booed for about 5 minutes. For 5 minutes I could not speak because it was a constant booing on the very premise that I was trying to put in their minds housing in their neighborhood. So I asked Mr. Perlman, how do you see yourself when it comes to an issue like affordable housing? Where do you see yourself? And can you just share with the committee your response and your goals or desires should you be commissioner?
Sure. I'm happy to. And Councilman, I appreciate that, and I respect that position. And I agree that a certain level of skill and experience should be brought to each position. I think one of the things that's important, there's no question that I'll have a lot of homework to do should I be approved, and I will have to, it's a steep learning curve that I'm fully ready to tackle. But what I've learned throughout my community service work in various areas is that oftentimes it's helpful to bring in another perspective, someone who isn't necessarily steeped in that particular committee assignment or commission, because you'll bring another perspective, and you have the benefit here of having expert staff to bring you the factual analysis and to help prepare you. And then I think the commission in part has to bring the community perspective as well. And one of the things I spoke with Councilman Reyes about was that I'd like to do the same thing. I would like to go out to the neighborhood councils. Maybe I'd view that differently after 40 or 50 of those. But I would like to have the opportunity to go and meet with them and receive more input from the various neighborhood councils and stakeholders to make sure that we get a broad variety of views and opinions and voices, and so they can all be heard. And that's one of my goals, is to be able to do that. And again, I think a skill set that I bring is an ability to listen, an ability to take in the information and analyze it, and hopefully assist in narrowing down the issues and bringing agreement among the commission.
I think in your answer, I was going to ask you, what did you want to bring to the table? I think you've answered that. And I was going to ask you, what do you want to see as you walk away from this commission, should you be appointed? And I think you've answered that as well. Are there any other questions from my colleagues? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to move to appoint you to the commission, and we can put that to a vote. That's Councilmember? Yes?
I'm going to vote yes. I'm going to ask you, and hold on, I'll say yes now, but then it goes on to council confirmation.
Yes.
What I'd like is the opportunity to sit down with you before council confirmation, because I'm going to vote yes at this committee. But right now, as where I'm standing, and out of all due respect, we'll be a no at a council. But I want to give you the benefit of the doubt and sit down with you and talk to you about what that means. I mean, this is critically important for the vitality of the future of the city of Los Angeles, and I take that responsibility obviously very seriously, as you do, and that's why you're here. And so, out of respect, and I'll go ahead and say yes at this time. And then, when does it due to come to council? When do you come?
This appointment, as well as the next appointment, is scheduled in council on August 7th. So that would be next Tuesday.
Great. Okay. If we can get together,
I would welcome that
talk
opportunity,
offline, that'd be
Councilman.
great. Terrific. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perlman, and thank you, Councilman Donner, for a very thoughtful conversation. Our next guest, Mr. Samseta, and please correct me with your last name. I know I'm butchering it.
It's Samseta. You said it perfectly.
Great. Okay. Well, welcome, sir. And this is a position for the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners. And can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background?
Sure, absolutely. I was born in Tehran, Iran in 1975. I remember very fond moments at the time, and within a few years, the entire society collapsed. So I do have very fond memories during the beginning and towards the end. I remember that my dad was basically hiding people inside the house, and because of the whole regime change. This is why I really appreciate the founding fathers and their vision. I have ingrained memories of how things can happen. I moved to Spain in 1981 and picked up Spanish. And then in 86, we moved to Canada. I picked up a little bit of French, forgotten, and was ingrained into the North American culture. And then I moved to Los Angeles in 2001. And in Canada, I studied engineering. And when I came here, I began working at Valley Recycling, the current position, and did my MBA.
Great. Well, I want to welcome you. In terms of familiarity with the role of this commission, what do you see yourself bringing to the table when it comes to this respective function within this commission?
As far as the engineering background, understanding the codes and regulations is, I guess, it would be the simpler task for me. As far as the business side, what I want to bring is looking at the entire department to see how it functions as far as a customer service perspective. How is it helping the people? Given that rules and regulations are there to protect, how is it helping the people? How is it helping business? How are other departments, for example, like DWP, working with the building and safety if they're working on joint, for example, solar power projects or whatever it is, how things are working? Does the general manager understand what is happening at the roots level? How are the inspectors, for example, functioning and helping the people and helping the business out? So it's more taking a look at the broad spectrum and understanding how the department works. As a CEO of a company, I've been fortunate to lead a small recycling center to a company now that is, for the past 2 years, and I hope this year as well, top 5,000 fastest growing companies in the United States. So I understand how cross-pollination and communication, leadership all work out.
So in your growth experience as a private entity, did you engage in building and safety as much? Was it also only from a organizational point of view, from a plant physical point of view?
To give you an example, in 2008, what happened was we were very popular on. The company was, I guess, has been around since 1979. And we were going about our business, and all of a sudden we got this letter that we don't have the proper permit. So because the recycling industry wasn't that popular back then, we were considered a junk dealer. And of course, building and safety comes along, and there's new guidelines and restrictions that we were unaware of as a small business. And we got this letter stating that if you don't become compliant, you have to leave within weeks. And that, as a business, is extremely terrifying because where are my employees going to go? What happens to the customers? What happens? You're thinking about a lot of things. Fortunately, we had hired a former city inspector to help us out with this scenario. And the inspectors came down, and what I saw was a really remarkable department. That was, we had this terrifying letter, and all of a sudden we have this really amazing department, and the inspectors were working to find a solution. And the solution was to paint 33 parking spots, which we did, and the matter was resolved. So I come with that experience of as a business owner receiving that terrifying letter, but seeing a really amazing department, as far as my experience was concerned, try to resolve this problem.
Given that more than half the city is of Spanish surname, and Spanish is fairly dominant in the Southern California region, do you still speak Spanish?
Absolutely.
Great. That being said,
they make fun of my accent because from Andalusia, Spain, we say instead of so I say zapato, and they laugh at that. So zapato.
The true Spanish from Spain. Colleagues, any questions?
Yes. Well, first I wanted to thank you for sharing that experience. I mean, this is what I've always been looking for, somebody that actually not has necessarily been ingrained in the department or worked for the department for a commission, but somebody that's experienced firsthand problems. And I think you hit one of the things that I was waiting to hear was customer service. I was waiting to hear those words, and it was one of the first words that you said, particularly for building and safety. And if you've listened to a lot of the budget deliberations and the things that I've honed in on with the department, has not been so much the code enforcement side of the agency, but the building and the inspectors, and how difficult it is. Those are the complaints that I get often, that we all get often from whether it's a homeowner trying to do an addition or something on their own home, or a building owner or landlord trying to do tenant improvements or build a structure. those are the complaints we get, is that the customer service has a lot of issues and problems, that they send out different inspectors every time, and won't go through all the list of issues. But that, I think, is the biggest issue we've got right now, is bringing in somebody, commissioner would be great, that understands how to grow a business and the issue of small businesses and how they're the backbone, and it's so important to the city. We rely on small businesses, and that you've had this personal experience as well in getting this shocking letter of fear of being shut down, and then having to scurry quickly and bring on an army to fix the problem, and that a lot of those things haven't changed. And I don't know how long ago that was for you. How long ago was that?
2008.
I'm sorry?
2008.
2008. People are still getting those types of letters in the way they're written today. And so we've got to change that mentality. We've got to change that customer service level to want people to do business with the City of L.A. And so I appreciate you sharing that story with us. So, thank you.
Well, that means I'd like to recommend that we appoint, I just hate butchering your last name, but I would like to appoint you to the commission.
Thank you.
And San Zadra, right?
Perfect.
Great. And is that unanimous?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Again, thank you for your work and supporting the City of Los Angeles. Thank you, sir. Roberto, you want to read 3 and 4 together?
Sure. Item 3, council members, is a motion by Councilman Huizar and Wesson. It's a motion requesting 2 city planning associates to work on the Boyle Heights Community Plan. Item 4 is a city planning report that provides an update on the status of the Boyle Heights Community Plan, and the 2 issues are interrelated.
Okay. We'll have the staff listen report, please.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. Ken Bernstein, Principal City Planner for the Policy Planning and Historic Resources Division, and wanted to provide an update for you, a summary on both items 3 and 4 today. As I think you know, the new community plan program for Boyle Heights was placed on hold due to the significant budget and staffing challenges of the last few years. We had begun work on the Boyle Heights plan back in 2007, but halted work when significant cuts to the department's staffing came in 2010. And since then, it has been a top priority of our department to resume work on this plan, and we thank Councilmember Huizar for his ongoing leadership in keeping this a high priority and in being creative in trying to identify new resources to allow the work to resume on this plan. And for our department, the work on Boyle Heights is a top priority because this is a community that has been undergoing rapid change, has seen significant transit investment, and we have significant work already invested in this plan through the beginnings of outreach and technical studies. We want to make certain don't go stale and that can be used to bring us over the finish line for the completed plan. The challenge has been how to identify those staffing resources to be able to move forward once again. And our report again indicates that work on the plan can only resume once dedicated staffing is assigned to the project. We have also learned the lesson of some of the work on our existing plans and have stated clearly in our report that this community, Boyle Heights, is really the size of a mid-sized city, essentially a Burbank, a Glendale, Pasadena, Santa Monica. And in too many cases in the past, we have understaffed and under-resourced our community plans and put a single point person on a plan of tremendous diversity and complexity. So we've indicated that to move this plan forward on a reasonable timetable, 2 staff positions would need to be allocated to the department. In fact, for the fiscal year 2011-12, the council did allocate 2 positions, but those positions were never funded, and we therefore were not able to move forward with the hiring of those staff positions. So our report indicates that it is our hope certainly that those positions will be funded, and if they are, work can resume on the Boyle Heights plan immediately. If no additional staff positions are funded, then work would resume when the department is able to free up staffing from our small staff staff in the Policy Planning and Historic Resources Division that is working on the 6 remaining community plans that are active in our program, and those are San Pedro, West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Lamert, Granada Hills, Sylmar, South Los Angeles, and Southeast Los Angeles. And since we do have a very small staff working on those plans, as Mr. Legrand indicated already, our primary commitment over the next several months is to deliver those plans, release those draft plans and EIRs on the timetable that he indicated just a little bit earlier in the meeting. But again, we have repeatedly stated that Boyle Heights is at the very top of our priority list. We are doing an ongoing review of our work program to make certain that we can get to Boyle Heights as soon as possible. And once again, it's our hope that if the council wants to immediately launch the Boyle Heights plan, that we can find the funding and staffing to move forward with those 2 positions. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, and so given that Budget and Finance, my understanding is that the report from Budget and Finance does fund 1 position and leaves it to the Planning Department and the CLA and the CAO to figure out a way to work on funding for the 2nd position. Is that accurate?
The Budget and Finance report does essentially instructs the Planning Department to front fund 1 planning associate position, I think is the way it is worded. Right. Again, it is our hope to be able to start this plan as soon as possible. We are not able to divert resources from the existing community plans. However, if a net increase to planning comes in, if a net new position comes in, we
I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't mean to be rude here, but I do want to, just a clear answer. You have 1 funded, and it says CLA, CAO, and planning to work on looking at funding a 2nd position. Is that conversation going to occur? Are you scheduling discussions with them, or is it going to be more internal?
Do you want to?
Yes, Mike Legrand for the record. Prior to recess, we were in conversations with the CAO regarding those issues in the CLA, and so we don't have current information for you today, but we do plan to meet with them. They were looking at different sources of funding to fund 1 position, and if we're able to find that money, which we felt very confident at the last meeting we had with the councilman and the CLA and CAO, we'll definitely be able to start that work program. Just between the time we had that conversation and now, we haven't had the ability to recircle and make sure that that funding has actually been identified and secured.
Okay. Again, I just want to be very...
We're not trying to be ambiguous. It's really just a matter of timing.
No, thank you. And again, it's understanding the status, and it's work in progress. But specific plans, community plans in this part of the town for the past 20 years has been lacking. So that's why we need to push hard to make sure it gets completed. If you look at the scale and the list of all the planning tools we've used in this city from a regional point of view, I think the study from UCLA does talk about the tale of 2 cities. And one of the reasons is how we apply ourselves as 1 city, and that's why I think it's urgent that we try to continue working as 1 city, and these are the critical steps towards that end so we can reach parity as to how we use our resources. Councilman Rizzo?
Thank you, and you know, I do feel like we've been going around in circles for the last 2 years, and we've had the same conversation over and over, whether it was when I was on Budget and Finance or here in Plum, that, I mean, I appreciate the Planning Department's commitment to this, but I really haven't seen any action toward finding a solution, and here we are again going back. I've heard this already before, and I brought everyone together in my office, CAO, CLA, Planning Department, everyone who could have some say. We said it during the budget process how important it is for all of us to get going and update our community plans. I mean, one of the reasons we get criticized in our planning procedures is that we don't have updated community plans. We are making some decisions that don't comply with our community plans, are outdated, and having up-to-date community plans is one of the most basic things a city should do to plan for its future, and we don't have that. And every time we come here, we say it's a priority, but nothing is happening. So I just want to walk away today with a firm commitment and some timelines as to when this is going to happen. I mean, this has gone to my attention because of the work that has already started in Ball Heights, which is in my district. But then again, like I said, this applies to the whole city. It's just unfortunate that this whole planning process had started in Ball Heights and it came to a complete halt. And it's going to cost the city even more to throw out those old plans because they're outdated and start again. It just doesn't make sense. So I want to clarify today what exactly we're doing in what timeline. Now let's start with what exactly are we doing. The Budget and Finance Committee said that the planning department should upfront one planning position with Measure R dollars. Can you do that?
Well, we have some Measure R dollars. We need the ability to bring in a position, an actual body to work on this plan with those dollars. And so we have a request that is before the managed hiring process to add a position, and we are hopeful to get that funded as soon as possible.
But you can't do that. The Budget and Finance Committee approve that. If we approve this and it goes to council and we say that's the correct path to take, if we hire, can you upfront this one planning position with Measure R dollars? Just the funding mechanism alone, can you do that?
Yeah, I have to, wish I could give you a quick answer. The term upfront is new to me. I don't see a situation where through the budget process we are going to be made whole prior to the end of the fiscal year, that would be a problem to have one position allocated to that, knowing that we're not going to spend all that money this current fiscal year. We just need to check with our CFO to make sure that can happen. So if you'd like, I could answer that question at the next plan meeting or with you between now and the end of the week. I just don't want to give you a quick answer, and again, the recess kind of got in our way, and I apologize for not having this information today. Our intent is, as we work with you, to find funding for that position, whether it's Measure R general funding, to be able to move that forward and utilize the money we've been able to save on Boyle Heights to have it not be reverted back, so we continue on that plan area. It's very important to us as well as your constituents.
Yes, because, I mean, we're going to walk away from here with the same, hey, everything, we're working hard, but this motion already went through Budget and Finance. Why wasn't these concerns brought up then to say, well, we may not be able to do it if, in fact, it sounds like there's no firm commitment. I thought you would get a yes out of my question since it went through the Budget and Finance Committee.
Honestly, I think on our behalf, it's a lack of preparation to have the answer here today for you in that level of detail. We were assuming that we weren't under the impression, at least the people speaking today.
One of the things I do not like doing as a council member, as a legislator, is to micromanage how our departments spend their money. You tell us your priorities, we approve your budget, and you go execute. But in this case, for the next fiscal year, I'm going to move some money around your department and tell you how to fund these projects if you guys don't do it quickly. This is frustrating. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I'd like to see is we're going to continue this item because I think the councilman does deserve a more direct response. And granted, you're not prepared today, but these are very basic questions. But 2 points I'd like to see come back to this committee. We'll continue this for next week. Is one, the funding status of this position. 2, the personnel process to get a person in place. Because I know that's what hindered the previous director. We would fund positions, and then positions were not filled because of the process in the personnel. And I'm not blaming personnel, these are our rules that we're following as policymakers. But Councilman Huizar has been on this issue for 2 years. So it just didn't happen last month. It didn't happen 6 months ago. It's 24 months. So we should have some results. And if we can get that, that would be very much appreciated. So we'll continue this item. And we do have people here for public comment. And we're going to public comment now, but can we do that, Mr. Legrand? Oh, yes. Councilman England.
Make a suggestion as a member of the Budget and Finance Committee, as Vice Chair as well. You might want to meet with Miguel Santana on this. One of the things we did in this current budget process was we looked at them bringing back a plan that we don't have to go directly to managed hiring if it's a resolution authority and there's no general fund dollars, that there's a process if it's full cost recovery, cap cost, and so they're defining now a process because of the frustration with every department, quite frankly. It's just wrong, and we're basically tying our general managers' hands behind their back and saying, go do your job, and then, by the way, here's the money to go do it, but you still don't have the authority to make a decision or hire anybody. And so, I hear my colleagues' frustration on this as well, because I'm dealing with it on a bunch of other departments and some other things right now as well, and going back to the general managers, and they're going, wait, well, we appreciate the funds for the personnel, but there's this whole process through the mayor's office, the CAO's office, and we don't have a seat at that table, and nor do any of us, because it's council leadership along with the mayor, and it's a very tight process, and it should be because of where we're at with the city. But if it's not general fund dollars, and their resolution authorities, then there should be another process, and that's what we identified in this year's budget. The other thing is we also did a 6-month budget, not a fiscal year budget. And so you only have to, at this point in time, if there's a front funding mechanism to bypass or go work with the managed hiring process, you're looking at 6-month authorities versus a 1-year authority. So keep that in mind as well. Might make things a little easier, and we can expedite the process.
So for the sake of clarity, items 3 and 4 will be continued with the understanding that we'll get more specific information regarding the funded program that was recommended by Budget and Finance, and the second position in which it's recommended for the CAO, the CLA, and planning to come up with a recommendation to get that funded?
Actually, Councilman, that was never actually an instruction. What budget said is, under item 2 is for CLA, CAO to come up with controller instructions as to the one position, the Measure R position. But the issue of the second position, that's silent in the report. It's never addressed in the communication from Budget Committee.
Well, number one, we have to clarify whether the solution as proposed by Budget and Finance can be implemented and when that will be implemented. But second, it leaves open still the question of that second position, which Budget and Finance didn't address. That's ideal, but quite frankly, if we could just get this one position moving, that would do a lot to open up the bottleneck of community plans that we have. So, we focus.
Get to the second one.
Yeah, well, if they come up with, it's hard enough to get the first. If they come up with let's figure out if we can get this first one, and if you guys come up with something creative for the second one, even better.
Okay. All right. So are we okay there with Director Michael LeGrand? Yes, sir?
Yes, thank you very much for the continuance. Again, my apologies that we weren't prepared to directly answer your questions today. Our intent is to give you accurate information, so we don't have to come back and give you different answers. So we'll be prepared next week to give you a full comprehensive report on this subject and hopefully a resolution that you'll adopt.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir.
And I think, and part of that is, we just adopted the Hollywood Community Plan, so I would like to see a comprehensive plan whether not only does this funding mechanism work, but your other resources and how you are allocating those in your community plans updates, because I would assume now that with the Hollywood Community Plan done, you're able to put some of those resources in Boyle Heights and other places. So it'd be great to get an overall report on how you're allocating those resources.
Will do.
No, we're not micromanaging here. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. So we'll open this up to public comment. We have 3 cards for both 3 and 4. We'll take them together. We have Yolanda Gonzalez, Teresa Marquez, and Rosalie Gurola, I believe. I'm trying to read the last name. I apologize for mispronouncing it. So I'd like to come on up. We have Yolanda Gonzalez, Teresa Marquez, and Rosalie Gurola. You guys can decide. Good afternoon. Welcome to City Hall.
Good afternoon. Yolanda Gonzalez, property owner in Boyle Heights. I was sent to this committee meeting because I didn't know what the hell was going to go on. Mr. Weezer, I want to congratulate you for what you just said. As a property owner and being within the limits of the CRA that never anything ever happened, and all of a sudden now we're having to come up with these community plans, and we have illegal sober living coming in Boyle Heights, and we're trying to get loans for our property because our properties are getting old. and understanding low-income housing, affordable housing, and for people like us that invest, and we should be investing behind our own backyard. I want to sell. I can't sell because I don't know where to go to. Investments are very high. I want to understand, we as a neighborhood council member and past vice president, we have qualified people that should be hired for these commissions. There's nobody who understands land use, planning, and especially for those of us who still own property at the beach because we understand specific plans. Our education came through the neighborhood council movement, and we didn't have degrees for that. We had degrees in something else. But our degrees came in the money that we made and we invested in. There's nobody else who understands, as a community member, all this. And among us, we all have degrees, and we speak 4 to 5 languages. En su casa hablamos inglés, español, francés, búlgaro y árabe. We have become an international mecca. This city needs to redefine itself in investments for properties because people are leaving. And I'd like to be assigned to one of those commissions. Yolanda Gonzalez.
Thank you. Teresa Marquez?
Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Marquez. And the reason why I'm here, I'm a homeowner in Boyle Heights, and I want to thank you, Councilman Huizar, for what you just said in regards to our planning. That's exactly what I was here for. I am confused as to what is going on with our planning in Boyle Heights. We have not seen any updates, and they're saying that they are outreaching to who? I'm a homeowner. Why aren't they outreaching to me? I haven't heard anything from them. I have not heard any meetings or any presentations. And you're right. Right now, things are going on, things are developing, and we don't know how that fits into the plan. One of the things that I'm really, really concerned about in Boyle Heights is, and I want to thank Englander for the sober living compliance. I need to find out how to enforce that in Boyle Heights. We definitely need it, and I will be contacting your office on that. But in regards to other planning in Boyle Heights, we don't have enough businesses there. We don't have supermarkets. We don't, CDS is coming. I hope they do come. I don't like the idea that we have ELAC fighting our CDS coming into our group. The other thing is affordable housing. Please stop affordable housing in Boyle Heights. We're going to become a big government housing. The affordable housing that ELAC is building is not even a quality housing. They're ugly. They don't have any character. So thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time. Next speaker, Ms. Purola.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosalie Garola. I'm a lifetime resident of Boyle Heights. I will not mention the organizations that I've been in. I don't think it's necessary, but I have been in every one of them. Least I forget, let me also thank you regarding the sober living ordinance. It's very appropriate. We need it, and thank you for your leadership. Councilman Huizar, thanking you also for your concern in terms of the positions for the committee and your concern and obviously your frustration. I'll leave that to you gentlemen and ladies to take care of that. My concern is the implications and the impact of Boyle Heights. We all know the history of Boyle Heights and the kind of community it used to be, which was a working class community. Now it is a very low income community. The other day I was at a social event and I got into a really vigorous argument with someone. Someone told me that now they're calling Boyle Heights the Mexican Skid Row. I was furious, needless to say. Furious, okay? In terms of the new community plan, and the impact. The concern that we hear over and over is the density in Boyle Heights, the extreme density. We all know that it's, if not the densest community in the city of LA and the county. Correct or correct? That is a major concern. And because it's all low-income people that are being brought in from all over the city, social problems from all over the city. May I have a few more seconds to finish my sentence?
Please finish your
I
sentence.
appreciate your courtesy. I'll be brief and to the point, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention the only thing that continues to move forward is East LA Housing Corporation and the fact they continue to build and build and build low-density housing in our community. It's a major concern. It has impacted our community in a very negative way. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your courtesy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this item will be continued. Roberto, next item.
3 and 4 are continued. The next item is a city attorney prepare ordinance relative to a modified parking requirements citywide.
Okay, let's staff come on up. Good day, sir.
Good afternoon. Tom Rothman, staff of the Planning Department from the Code Studies section. This is an ordinance that was approved by Plum back in September of last year, so this is returning from the City Council prior to going to the full council, from the City Attorney prior to going to full council. This is an ordinance, it's been a long time in the making. It's a new supplemental use district. It's simply the legislation to enable new supplemental use districts that will target parking on neighborhood and district levels. We're calling this ordinance the Modified Parking Requirement District. The genesis of this is that the city has many different parking challenges. It cannot be planned on a citywide basis. The differences in parking throughout the city. So we came up with the idea of targeting specific neighborhoods with a supplemental use district that can address those specific needs. And this ordinance, we think, is going to provide the flexibility to our community plans that will help target the problems. We are proposing 7 menu items that can be used singularly or in tandem with each other to address whatever the concerns are. And I'm going to go through them very briefly, and you can respond. The first thing is the change of use parking standards, and we envision this to be used in older parts of the city that have limited parking, have successful businesses, but the turnover to a new type of business cannot happen because there's no room for additional parking. We can see this being used in areas like the Bring Back Broadway project, where the existing parking must stay in place, but no additional parking would be required. So if you're going from a bookstore that may have 3 or 4 spaces to a restaurant, you would be grandfathering those spaces in, but no more would be needed. We're going to be allowing off-site parking as another menu item. Right now, the zoning code allows off-site parking for only commercial uses, but not for residential. This would expand it to 1,500 feet for all uses, again, only in one of these supplemental use districts that chose that option. We're proposing a new parking permit that could reduce parking on a project-by-project basis. And instead of a variance, it would be a project permit, and it would address parking demand and traffic demand, and not so much hardships that our variances look at. Decreasing our parking standards or increasing our parking standards. Perhaps increasing our parking standards would be in areas of the city that have high tourism, maybe near the ocean, other parts, and decreasing parking standards perhaps near transit-oriented districts where we're looking at holding on to federal transit money so we can lower the parking standards and increase pedestrian orientation. Commercial parking credits, where new businesses can tap into city parking and pay a minimal fee to access parking. And then maximum parking standards, which we're looking at doing right now in the Cornfields Arroyo Seco specific plan, where a maximum is mandated as opposed to a minimum. So those are 7 options. Again, they can be chosen, one or multiple, and hopefully they will be implemented as the community plans move forward. There's another tool We've had extensive community involvement in this over the last 2 years. We've made some changes, added some findings. We've exempted this from any specific plan, so specific plans can already do these things, so we're not proposing that this be included separately from a specific plan, but a specific plan could option any of these anyway. So this is really just to create a new geography for parking.
And for the record, I want to just be a little bit clear as to what triggers this ordinance. My understanding is that it's through the community plan process is one approach in which this could be triggered. A local organization or entity within the communities that we serve can also be another trigger. A neighborhood council, one of the associations, or a council member could bring that forward to the committee to see if this fits. So there's different entryways in which this toolbox could be stimulated and be applied throughout the city. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, accurate, very accurate.
Okay. Now, in terms of just more technical, we're talking about commercial parking credits when you have a transit-oriented district in which the neighboring property owners already point to, let's say, the proximity to the red line or the gold line, and they get credits and not have to produce as many parking. It depends on the capacity of that area to see if they get even more credits, or it depends how the community and local stakeholders want to treat that specific case. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate. I'm not sure that the commercial parking credits would be the best tool for a TOD, because the commercial parking credits which we currently use in Eagle Rock and now in Atwater are areas where there is a proven through a study that there is ample on-street and off-street city-owned parking spaces. So, I mean, it could be used in a TOD, but we would have to do a study to show that there's enough parking for new restaurants or stores to dip into. If there's a very small vacancy rate for parking on the street, it might not be worth the while.
And from the big picture point of view, is the opportunity here is to enhance investment, because now we are doing away with many of the existing loops that exist, that now the private entities will no longer have to essentially drill through. Transparency will be enhanced. In the public process, the investor, as much as the property owner and the community stakeholder, will see the eventual impact, because it'll be decided before these tools are implemented. Would that be accurate?
Exactly. So I think one of the problems we have in the city with parking is that because some of our more impacted areas where all of these new businesses come in for variances or other types of parking deviations, the parking standards get diluted, and it's very unclear as to what's really going on. What is the parking standard? Well, if everybody has a variance or some kind of other deviation, we still have the parking standard, but it becomes irrelevant, whereas we're hoping to, keep some consistency here.
Great. Well, I want to say thank you, and finally, we needed this very badly. I mean, hopefully the next window that opens as the cycle of our economy goes up, we'll be able to show efficiencies and actually invite investment as opposed to scaring it away. So that being said, my colleagues, any questions? Yes, Councilman Rosa.
Just want to thank the planning department for bringing this forward. It's, like Mr. Reyes said, a long time coming, and this provides flexibility for a very diverse city. There are different needs. One size does not fit all. For the longest time, areas that needed revitalization, one of the things that have been holding them back is the parking requirements that get the same thing applying to all areas in the city, but there are different needs. So this is going to definitely help. If you want more parking, let the local community decide that. Less parking, let the local community decide that, given the constraints in the area. We're certainly going to need this when we move forward with our streetcar. We're going to be applying for a district in the area where it's going to be very helpful there. And as opposed to go through the old route and trying to figure out, kind of trying to fit a round peg in a square hole, this is going to be a lot easier because there's a tool by which to do it now, and it's going to be a lot more helpful. So thank you very much for your work on this.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We went through some of the, and I appreciate the chairman going through some of the entry points on this. What's the process? So if it's done by a motion, or if it's done by, it was mentioned neighborhood councils, or the applicant itself, the property owner, what's the process, the path that it would follow?
So what's the process for implementing it, once this gets established, to actually implement one on the ground?
So give me a real-life scenario, if you could. Just walk me through one. So you've got a restaurant who wants to move into a space. They don't have enough parking. Who do they go to?
Well, they could go to the planning department. They could go to their council office, and I think that we're really looking at this as being more of a district issue, not so much of a property by property issue. So if you have an area along Canoga Boulevard that's been impacted by, there's plenty of on-street parking, there's parking lots, but the restaurant still needs to provide 12 parking spaces that are not available, and so this old storefront can't reopen. The council office could initiate a new supplemental use district, a new modified parking requirement district. We would, and as part of the community plan, we could include it, or as part of, or just by itself, we could.
So if we did it by itself, the instruction is that we'd have to get 75% of the property owners to buy in. Is that correct? Is that?
Well, that would only be in the case if it was a private applicant. But if you, as the council member, were doing it, you would not need that, or the planning department would not need it. It's only to prevent a private applicant from coming in and setting up a parking district for himself or herself to reduce parking. So we didn't want to, we have to make sure that there are safeguards in place. But no, for governmental entities, they would not need that. Just do a motion.
And how would a neighborhood council initiate it? It was mentioned that a neighborhood council can do something.
It's actually, this is like any other legislative process in the city. The pass to initiate a land use ordinance, council by motion can initiate. The city planning commission can also initiate, and then finally the director of planning can initiate. Those are the only three entities.
Okay. So a neighborhood council can go directly to their council member who they advise and ask them to carry it on their behalf.
Correct.
That's what you're suggesting. Okay, I see. Okay, great. Thank you.
They could also be the applicant, although they would have to pay the application fee, and I believe currently an application fee for a new supplemental use district is over $100,000. So it's a very expensive, costly process for a private applicant.
So if it's $100,000 for the applicant, that's just cost recovery, correct?
Yes.
Correct. So if
it's our most expensive fee to implement any supplemental use district by a private applicant.
By a private applicant.
By a private applicant.
Cost recovery. So, okay,
if initiated by the city, then
if initiated by the city, but there's no cost and there's no staff to follow up on the process, and then we come back here trying to find out how we're not getting it done and what's going on to hire additional staff or bypass.
If initiated by the city, it's a budget issue, and we would have to ask for staffing and funding to fund general fund to carry out that work program.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
One last point, and I want to make sure we are being comprehensive. My understanding is that the bicycle element and different modes of transportation will be factored into this process once we get the bicycle-related ordinance. Can you just share with us how that's trailing and how soon we can see that, so that we can get a full picture? One of the tragedies, I think, in the city is that we failed to fold in the bicycle element as a real alternative for future generations. So I just want to make sure we include that in the process.
Sir, the bicycle plan or the bicycle parking space ordinance traveled for the most part along the same lines as this modified parking requirement district. You should be seeing it come in the next few weeks or months also. That is an ordinance that implements the bicycle plan, and it requires new parking spaces for bicycles. It expands them. It expands bicycle parking to residential uses. It expands bicycle parking for all commercial uses. So it will be not only, if we're looking at this, I don't really look at this modified parking district as a reduction in parking. It's just modifications. But if we did choose to reduce parking in a certain area, we would be increasing the bicycle parking also at the same time. That's going to be done across the board. It's a citywide ordinance. The bicycle parking ordinance is not on a district level. It's citywide.
Understand. Thank you, sir.
And the bicycle parking ordinance, the city attorney has released that to the department. We will be signing off on that ordinance today, and then transmitting it back to the city attorney so the city attorney can then transmit it to the full council for a vote.
We can give my staff a heads up when you see that coming, so that way we can get ready for that item. But thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. Seeing no more questions from my colleagues, let's go into public comment. With us, Evelyn Alexander and Gary Kashishin. I butchered that, I know.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Evelyn Alexander, and I'm here today representing FAST, Fixing Angelenos Stuck in Traffic, a nonprofit organization dedicated to advocating for solutions that will improve mobility throughout the Los Angeles region. The Modified Parking Requirement Districts Ordinance before you is the beginning of a new way to plan in Los Angeles. From this point forward, planners and developers will work together to maximize the amount of space we use for dining, cultural activities, shopping, and other active uses for the limited space we have, while working responsibly to minimize the amount of space we use storing cars. The Modified Parking Requirements Districts Ordinance is the new normal in Los Angeles that recognizes we can walk a block or two to a restaurant or to a movie theater or to a wine bar. We can park once using previously underutilized parking structures or church parking lot that sits vacant 6 days a week, and visit more than one storefront in an area. We can walk in LA. Thinking this way, planning this way, will improve the walkability of our commercial and mixed-use areas and benefit the entire community by bringing life to these districts. This ordinance will serve as a tool for the planning department to work together with developers and business owners who bring value to our community, and so FAST strongly supports this ordinance. We'd like to recognize Councilmember Huizar for initiating this process following a very successful pilot program in Eagle Rock, and we thank and congratulate the planning department staff, including Tom Rothman and Alan Bell, for bringing the ordinance to this point. We look forward to continuing to work with you and your staff to improve mobility in the region. And for Mr. Reyes and Mr. Huizar, FAST has 6 undergraduate and graduate UCLA interns working for us this summer, and we brought 3 of them with us today to show our support for this ordinance. Thank you.
All right. Yagid Kashishian, come on up.
Good afternoon. Yehri Keshishin with the Central City Association of Los Angeles, speaking on behalf of the 450 businesses that employ more than 350,000 individuals throughout the city. CCA supports the ongoing efforts of this committee, and we remain hopeful that the city will set reasonable application fees, working in partnership with its diverse neighborhoods to come up with flexible parking standards that reflect local demands and needs. In a city as varied as Los Angeles, urban development does not stand to gain from implementing a one-size-fits-all set of rules to govern parking. What may make sense in a less dense area only acts to stifle development and investment in our city's transit-rich urban core. To witness the dramatic impact that a simple change to parking standards can have on urban investment, we should look to the success of the Adaptive Reuse Ordinance. Easing the parking requirements on the adaptive reuse of historic buildings unshackled these underutilized buildings from rules that didn't make sense. And in the end, we all witnessed how the laws of supply and demand ushered in creative and more appropriate solutions to downtown's parking needs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no more public comment calls, let's move this item. Have a second?
Yes. So you'll approve the city attorney ordinance, Council?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It appears that there's one.
I don't see it, but come on up. That's for general comment.
I gave you one, my dear. You even asked me what agenda item it was, and I said, no, it's public comment.
Okay, so there's
Yes, there's no agenda. It's, yes.
Oh, here's the confusion.
Oh.
Did you want to speak on this item?
Yes, I wanted to.
What we did is that we signed a general public comment card, which happens at the end.
Oh, okay.
So I think there's a confusion. So if you'd like to speak now, go ahead. Just fill out a card.
I wanted to invite you all on Friday nights at Venice, first Friday night. I want you to come and see the parking issue that we have. Just stop by from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock when we have the first Friday night of the evening. We need to solve the most important visited area of Venice. My property is right on Venice and Abbot Kinney. And if we start there by solving the parking problem for all the residents, you're going to find that you can pull in a plan to start solving a lot of problems of our parking, especially when people pay behind our backs $100,000 and $150,000 to have valet parking and take all our spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes and closes public comment on this item. Roberto, what are we going to vote on, just for the record? Councilman, did you want to say something? You okay?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. I know we typically don't address public comment, but if I just could, because of that concern that was brought up, and that it's a private party can't just pay $100 or $150,000 and walk away from the obligation of parking requirements. So just to let you know, and I didn't know if you heard that part, it's in fact, they would have to get 75%. That's only the beginning. They would still, that doesn't make it automatic. 75% of all the property owners around there, which is extremely difficult at best, as you would know. Those are high numbers. I was shocked to hear it was 75%. On top of that, they would still have to get the approval of the council member and the council. And so it's not just a matter of somebody wealthy writing a check to cause more traffic problems. And that's the only reason I'm supporting this, because I hear you loud and clear. And I think this creates more solutions than it does problems. I just wanted to address that. So thank you, Chairman.
Ms. Guerrero, come on up and speak on 5, although we received your card afterwards. But knowing you made the trip out here, please.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that courtesy. On the issue of parking, that residence very strong in Boyle Heights. In Boyle Heights, always there's cars double parked, again because of the extreme density in our community. There's cars parked in the middle of the street all the time on almost all of our streets. It's just common now, again because of the density in our community. So it's an issue that needs to be addressed in our community. Please. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're aware of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so on item 5, we approve the city attorney prepare ordinance, and the next item is item 6. It's a building and safety report. It's relative to the feasibility of a fee-supported on-site sign enforcement and permit streamlining program. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Hector Buitrago with the Department of Building and Safety. This motion had 2 major components. One of the components asked for the streamlining of the permit process, and I am happy to report that after several meetings with the California Sign Association and their members, we were able to come up with several measures to streamline the process within building and safety. Perhaps the more significant one is the assigning of specific staff that's going to work on sign issues, and thereby developing an expertise and providing for more consistency. This is expected to be a major help to the sign industry. We're also going to modify our process so that we allow for the preliminary plan checking of signs. This is before the plans are completely finalized. We would be able to check the plans and provide assistance before they spend the money to have the full design. This is also going to be very helpful. As soon as we're separately working on e-submittal, electronic submittal and plan check, and as soon as we have that worked out and the software is found to be effective, we will make that available to the sign industry. And this, the best thing I have to report on this is that this was done without an additional fee and without additional staff. So I think this is a true win-win situation. The other component of this motion called for the periodic inspection of on-site sign programs, and just to clarify, this would not include billboards. The billboard inspection program, that's a separate program that's being implemented, and it is being worked on as we speak. But this motion proposed for a periodic inspection of on-site signs throughout the city. This program would be a fairly large program that would be very demanding on resources. Our proposal would be that we do a pilot program. Now, to do a pilot program, we would need additional staff, which I'm afraid to report, or sorry to report, we do not have at this time. So we would propose that maybe in a year's time, we would come back and revisit this issue. But for the time being, we would ask that the report be received and filed.
in terms of the implementation phase, this pilot program, is there a dialogue between the different departments to see how we can begin enforcement of this particular program and on a pilot level?
This program would be mostly, once it's implemented, it'd be almost strictly building and safety. Of course, how the codes affect what we do is very important. So, we would have to wait. It seemed like it would be reasonable to wait until the sign code is undergoing the revisions that are currently being proposed.
Okay, well, I'll let it go. Okay, I guess what I'm trying to get at is implementation. And when we're going to receive and file this item, but it does not mean we're going to essentially, I need a response in terms of when do we begin implementing. And understanding that to get through the legalities of it, we've still got to go through the analysis, but because of the lack of staff, we can't do that at this time.
We're mostly done. We know essentially what needs to be done. What we do not know is what are the consequences of the program and exactly how much time we would spend, because the fee that we would charge would have to be depend on our cost. And
that's the purpose of the pilot program.
And yes, so that's why we would need to do this in-depth pilot program. So we established the facts that then we would be able to apply citywide.
Okay,
now, and we simply do not have the staff at this current time.
So I won't put you on the spot now, but we need to follow with my staff to figure out the best next steps strategically from this point on. But we'll have that discussion at another time, and we'll follow up with a motion. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your hard work. So the first phase was positive news, so that was good. Councilman?
Yeah, I just got some concerns over what I just heard from Building and Safety. We don't have a report or anything outlining what these issues are from Building and Safety that have been submitted to the committee.
I'm sorry?
We don't have a report.
No, there is a report
from Building and Safety.
Yes, there is a report. There is not
outlining these issues.
It's dated
it's
May 21st.
Well, this one says that the program be deferred until the city is able to re-examine the current sign provisions. You're asking for receive and file, not even it being deferred.
Right. Well, that's why I wanted to follow up with another motion so that we get traction on some direction, because you're right.
I don't think we should just kill this. I think it's a great concept and there's a lot of work that's been put into it. So what's the next step that you'd recommend?
So my understanding is that we're going to receive and file the implementation of this report.
And we will come back in 1 year to revisit the issue.
Okay, that's what I'm having problems with.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to come back sooner than that and understand exactly, speaking to the city attorney's office, speaking to Building and Safety and CAO, how to direct the department to pick this up so that we can start implementation. What's it going to take? Because it's a cost issue. What I'm hearing from Building and Safety is that they don't have the personnel to do anything right now. And so where do we get the money to do that? But it's a catch-22. How do we figure that out? I don't have anyone to actually do the work to give us a sense of the cost. So we're stuck in this loop.
Well,
Can I
make a suggestion that you identify what it would cost and that we bring that cost to the budget committee and make it a priority for Building and Safety instead of just kicking the can down the road for a year, because in a year it's still going to be a cost issue and the city's not going to be better off financially. But right now, here's the issue. The issue is that we're trying to be more business friendly. We're trying to allow businesses to locate here that don't have this parking requirement is a very difficult obstacle in many parts of the city. And when we're trying to bring businesses here and have some type of other process to allow them, and it's an expensive process, but to allow them to work with the city, with their neighbors, to create something very positive, to just say, well, we don't have the money for the implementation and the staff. This committee is trying to do something positive, and I think this is a great step in the right direction. So the question is, can you identify what those shortfalls are financially and staffing, particularly for this to implement, and bring that back to perhaps the Budget Committee and ask for an allocation, or work with their CAO to find out what kind of funds would be available or what would be cost recovery on this, simply to be a little more positive than just trying to figure something out a year from now. That's what I would ask.
If we can do this, because I want them to fold in everything you said, is continue this one item 1 week. Because I'm looking at the summary reports, there is direction where the planning department, in consultation with the city attorney, to prepare a report relative to the implementation of a nominal fee to administer a sign code administrative program, they're calling it SCAP, on all commercial businesses in the city using exterior on-site signage to fund increased sign enforcement. So let's do this. We'll continue 1 week, we'll regroup, and we need more traction on how we get to implementation. And that's what I'm not hearing. And I agree with Councilman Adrian there. We just can't be, quote-unquote, kicking the can down the road. We can't. We know what we know today. Let's be very specific as to what the next steps are. And we're just not hearing that right now.
Okay.
So instead of putting you on the spot, we'll continue 1 week, we'll regroup, and fold in the elements that are in our report so that we can take succinct steps, very specific language that gets us to the next level. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll continue in a week. All right. We do have 2 speaker cards on this one. We have Veronica Perez and Edward Martinez. I'd like to come on up, please.
Good afternoon, council members. Veronica Perez. I represent the California Sign Association, and it was the California Sign Association that initially brought this idea to the city, along with its coalition of on-site business interests. California Sign Association is a statewide trade association made up of sign manufacturers, and some people may think it's interesting that it's a sign manufacturers that came to the city with a plan on how to enforce the sign code, but those in the sign industry think proper enforcement of the sign code is very important. It benefits all businesses and residents. It's a win-win to have a clean visual landscape for everyone. And I want to thank Building and Safety. They have met with us on numerous occasions, and we do appreciate their efforts on the streamlining side, because enforcement starts with a process that is easy to navigate. If you have a process that is too cumbersome, people aren't going to get their permits properly. So enforcement starts with that. And so we do believe that they've laid the foundation by proposing some measures to streamline the permitting process, and we do appreciate their time very much. There is this other aspect, which they have discussed they're going to save for a later time, which is the enforcement piece, and how do we fund this? I'm just here to say that we are still here. We want to partner with the city. We so appreciate your interest in continuing the next step of this program, and the California Sign Association, and I'm sure our other on-site business interests coalition are here as partners with you in that process. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And in having discussion with the staff, when you put it in perspective, let's pick any mall that you find in the city, whether it's in my district where you have 5 different languages, you have 5 different cultures, and their interpretation of space and how sign is perceived are very different, just on the sheer fact that that interpretation is so distinct from culture to culture. So what fits and what doesn't, how that gets interpreted, it's daunting. In a city as large as ours, over 4 million people, and so, this is a very, very difficult task, and it's not an overnight project. So, yeah, that's why I want to be careful in how we begin this process. So I appreciate that very much. Mr. Martinez, are you still here? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, council members. Eddie Martinez, playing deputy for Councilman Tony Cardenas. We were actually expecting the effort to be continued until next week, but I'll forward that to my chief of staff. We did want to actually commend Building and Safety for working with the California Sign Association to pretty much work out and get some feedback in regards to getting signs to be permitted and what have you, and also to streamline the application process. We were actually anticipating on perhaps waiting for this motion to be to be filed, and then we would revisit the actual motion once planning department would come up with their sign ordinance. That was our thoughts. But if you want to move forward with your recommendation for 1 week, I'll go back and work with my office.
Councilman Bell. Mr. Bell?
Just to clarify, developing new sign regulations and then enforcement of those sign regulations are two very separate issues. So one doesn't have anything necessarily to do with the other. We have been participating also with the California Sign Association and the Department of Building and Safety on this whole endeavor. And as you recall, with the current sign regulations, which will be coming forward to PLUM, we hope within a matter of weeks, the instruction that we received from PLUM, I think over a year ago, was to not address, as part of that sign code update, any revisions to the on-site sign regulations. So the ordinance that the city attorney is currently drafting will not include any revisions based upon PLUM's instruction to the on-site sign regulations. So there's no connection between enforcement and the regulations themselves. Just to be clear.
Okay. And if I'm hearing the council office correctly, what you have in front of us, what we have in front of us right now is the streamlining element of this is being worked on, it's been addressed. The issue now is enforcement. So by continuing to 1 week, I believe it allows us to now activate that which has already been processed. Internally, the department is working on streamlining, correct? Can you come to the microphone, please? So to address the council member's concern, his priority is to streamline, to get this process off the ground and actually moving internally within the department.
Yes.
And that's occurring.
Yes, and we do have a memo that will be distributed within a week, and we're implementing these new measures effective August the 20th.
So that's an internal process of how the signage is going to move.
Yes.
Now, the issue of enforcement is whether it's actually occurring out on the field, on X property, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the part that we need to figure out.
That's correct.
All right, so I'm hoping the councilman does see that we are, and they are moving in that direction. I just want to complete the circle. It's one thing to be streamlined within the department and moving it, but now the follow-through and actual abiding by the law is the enforcement side, and that's the piece that's the challenge. So it's being implemented, and I just want to make sure the staff understands that, Mr. Martinez. So I want to make sure you can take that back to the council member too, that we are addressing his priority, and I'd like to address all my colleagues in the most direct way, and I do believe they're there. So the continuance is to get a clear picture of how do we complete that loop. Okay? All right. So that being said, next item, Roberto.
6, and then for 1 week. The next item is a CAO report. It has to do with Construction Services Trust Fund allocation for the Build LA project.
So one of the biggest items on the agenda, no public comment cards. You guys are doing pretty good. Please come on up. Go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. Tyler Munhall with the CAO. This report is based on a request from the Departments of Building and Safety Planning, Bureau of Engineering, Fire and Transportation, which are collectively known as the Development Services Collaborative. They're requesting $405,000 from the Construction Services Trust Fund to fund a contract for consulting services on the technology piece called Build LA, basically to do an assessment of what systems exist and what systems are needed to be replaced, and get from the consultants specific recommendations on which companies can provide the technology solution to implement Build LA. There is also $100,000 that would go towards this contract from the Department of Water and Power, so the total would be $505,000. There's sufficient funding in the fund for this, and it does comply with the requirements of that special fund. The CAO recommends the approval of the request.
Great. So in essence, we are recommending the funds to begin the process that has other impacts, but we have yet to get there. This gets us to coalesce and have a focal point so that the departments can begin building that system that allows us to use our technology in a more efficient way and start again de-escalating the amount of trips and inconsistencies and redundancies that affect all our departments when one project is trying to be built. Correct?
Correct.
All right. Building and civil. Thank you for that report. Any questions from the CAO? Because this is a one-shot deal at this time, and once the study evolves, we're going to get a better sense of total cost of these changes down the line.
Right. This is a small step before the big step of actually rolling out a new technology system. So it's the big step will be more money.
See, the scary part for me is that in sitting in public safety for so many years, we saw what the fire department and the police department and even in Plum with other departments, where we go down this road and the first few 100,000 evolves into millions. And then the accountability issue is, did it perform? And we learn from mistakes and all that other good stuff. This, to me, I have a sense of security because this is the beginning step. But the end product, my hope would be that Los Angeles will become a much more inviting place to invest because of the clarity we're going to attain and the resources we will generate as a result of a effective program will offset the costs invested in the program. And that's my optimistic point of view. And is that the goal?
That is the goal, and I know that is, the mayor's office is also very involved in this, so that they are sort of leading this effort. The departments have come together as this collaborative and have actually, they have a lot of ideas and are waiting for this before they, so that they're all moving forward together. And the departments are here if you have specific questions for them.
So the legislative history is Councilman Garcetti and the motion back how long ago? About 6 years ago triggers a set of actions, and I'm assuming this evolves from those results. Is that accurate? Would you come to the microphone?
Hi, I'm Karen Panera from Building and Safety, and the original motion you're referring to was the 12-2 program, which didn't exactly pan out the way it was originally planned. So in last year, exactly a year, July 2011, we got a report from a consultant, KH Consulting Company, that looked at the city as a whole and the development process and what reforms were needed and made a recommendation and delivered a strategic plan. This funding request today is to ask for Gartner Services to now tell us what technology piece would best support, thank you, would best support those development reform initiatives. It's still, yes, you're right, it's still an offshoot of Councilmember Garcetti's original 12-2 plan.
Okay, because I remember we were having these discussions, we had to give and take, we had some plans, and now it kind of turned a corner and we're here now, so
yes,
it's all good all around, so anyway you look at it.
We believe so, and it's evidence as, I mean, how many times do you have a multi-department request such as this where we're all pulling together and have a joint request, and we're very interested in working together and breaking down those silos and making it happen.
Great. Councilman, you had a question? Yes.
Much. Well, this could be very well refreshing or very well expensive, or both. Not knowing exactly what we're getting into. What other cities or counties in California are doing this? Have done this? Have implemented a web-based this type of system, integrated system?
This is a collection of technology throughout the 12 development agencies, and while other municipalities like Santa Monica and the County of LA and San Diego have bits and pieces to support various like building permit initiatives, workflow, and so forth, this will encompass all the development services. And one of the biggest early on wins is a single portal into the development services. If you now want to look at a permit in Bureau of Engineering or Building and Safety or see what's happening in fire department, you have to pretty much either sign on to their website, and they all look different, they navigate through them differently, or you need to get on the phone where you probably don't, you have not as much resistance as most, because you have your liaisons that you can know what's happening with a project, but it's still difficult for you as a policymaker to get a handle on where a project is. Constituents even have a harder time. One portal allows the customer to go in and see with the same look and feel where it is. Is it in planning? Is it stuck in BOE? Is it stuck in building and safety? And you also have contact information there, so you know exactly what desk it's stuck on.
And is there an idea? Well, the one thing I didn't see in here is a framework of what the overall objectives are in terms of meeting. What are all the goals that have been outlined? And most of that would come from an RFP. In looking at, and I didn't. This isn't done by RFP, I'm assuming.
This current funding request is for Gartner to build a roadmap for us to prioritize what we should look at first, how we should approach actually even letting out an RFP. No, this isn't an RFP because we used an RFP process from the city of San Diego, who engaged Gartner in similar
So this is a
services.
piggyback on San Diego's contract?
It's not, technically, it's not a piggyback on the contract because we're not a co-signer to their contract, but we are piggybacking on the fact that we're using their RFP process. So in that term, you can say it's a piggyback.
Well, I'm actually referring to the report where it says this is a piggyback contract with Gartner.
I think it might say on the RFP process.
But in any event, so what I'm looking at, though, is this is exactly what we need. I mean, the fact now that you can go on to Domino's Pizza. Have you ever done this? Gone on to Domino's Pizza? I don't eat a lot of pizza, but my kids do.
Well,
Domino'sPizza.com.
Yeah.
You go on their website. I kid you not. This is really cool. Give me a second on this.
Yeah, royalties.
And you order a pizza, and it shows the pizza being made. I kid you not. Now I challenge Jose to do this. It shows you the pizza being made on the computer, and then a clock starts ticking, and it shows it going into the oven, and then it shows it coming out of the oven, and then it's being handed to the pizza delivery guy. And a little cartoon character gets in his car, starts driving your house. It shows how many minutes away from your home. And then, like, right when it hits 0, your doorbell rings. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
How about tortas? No
Yeah,
tortas?
well, Zappos.com, you want a pair of shoes. It's the same thing. You get a tracking number, a UPS or a FedEx tracking. Almost anything you do online now, you get a tracking number, you get a disposition number. It tells you, nowadays with UPS and FedEx, it tells you when it was en route, when it got to the truck, when it was delivered to your home, or who signed for it, or what. And I'd love to see a system ultimately go in the direction where you have a unique identifier, where you're putting in an application for land use or constituent service request or request for a pothole or tree trimming or whatever that might be, but particularly when you're talking about development. And you get a tracking number and an order number and a disposition, and automatically you don't have to call so many times and get transferred to a voicemail that's full, or hit 0 for an operator and it says, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. By the way, we don't have 0 for an operator in the city of LA. If you could just change that and start with 0 for an operator, it would be fantastic.
Well, in the report, there's something referred to as a universal ID, and it is exactly as you described. It will tie city development services together for a project, so you can follow the project through its inception to the completion of the project. And a lot of services are provided in parallel, so you'll be able to see where in the city that project is lying at the moment and how long it's been there. And so we feel there were many surveys done of the constituents and policymakers to find what were the pain points and try to address those pain points and provide better service, because that's what we need to do, is provide
So there's going to be,
service.
so ultimately there'll be an app for that, is what we're hoping for.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we'll have a little pizza man, but
All right, well, okay.
have something.
A little builder with a tool belt coming out?
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I want to just congratulate the mayor's office as well. I know they've been pushing hard on getting this to this point. But this is a great example of teamwork. When you have Councilman Garcetti working on that motion so many years ago, we go through our reality checks, and then we spin off into this place, and now we're discussing the makings of, my notes are correct, a web-based virtual construction services center.
That's part of it, yes.
So, okay, the portal is part of the web-based virtual center.
Yep, it's even bigger.
It's even bigger, it gets even bigger, okay. But I want to congratulate the staff for their spirit and seeing the opportunity and making us a much more desirable place to invest because of the transparency and predictability that this system will hopefully obtain for all the stakeholders. Councilman Rizzo, did you have anything? Okay.
I want to say, too, we appreciate your support. Your committee has been very supportive of the development services objectives, as well as the constituent service centers, and it's thanks to actions like this that help us further and provide better service to our customers. Thank you.
Great. So it's good to see the executive arm working together with the legislative arm. Fantastic, guys.
Are we? Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
When will we get a follow-up on how the status is?
We can give you whatever interval progress reports you'd like, monthly, every 2 months, quarterly, whatever you'd like. And we would like to give you a demo at some point.
Well, what's real? I mean, given what's in front of you.
1 year.
I mean,
1 year?
realistically, maybe 8 months before we leave, or no, just kidding.
Okay, how about 6 months? Is that a good one?
Is 6 months good for you? Or how about 4?
4? Okay.
Okay, let's do 4.
All right, 4 months.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we will approve the CEO recommendation to allocate $405,000 from the Construction Services Trust Fund for consultant services relative to a technology feasibility study for the Build LA project.
Thank you.
And that's the action of this committee. Okay, thank you. In 4 months, we'll get a report back. Anything else, Roberto?
Public comment?
Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Sir.